Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Conservative Corner. I'm Elliot Margolis, and I'm here with my special guest, John Deaton, running for the United States Senate. John, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
This is actually part two, because we just spent about 30 minutes on a show talking about a lot of policies. Got a lot more policies to talk about.
Yep.
So we'll start off very quickly here. Washington, D.C. is kind of a mess.
It is.
I'm kind of curious how some people can get into office. They're fairly well off. I mean, I'm not saying they're not millionaires, but I mean, all of a sudden you've got people like Elizabeth Warren who had a nice little chest, but now she's worth over $100 million. Then you have AOC, who was a bartender, who's now worth close to $30 million. How do we clean this up?
Yeah, that's why earlier I didn't get into a lot of it, but in the first segment we talked about my first bill being the Washington Clean Hands Act. There's a reason that members of Congress have like a 12% approval rating. And we don't have to look any further than Massachusetts. You brought up Elizabeth Warren, Anna Presley, Congresswoman. Her net worth was $50,000, 7 years ago. Now she's worth over $10 million.
That's not bad on $175,000 a year.
It's not just that; it's $175,000 a year. But you've got two residences, one in Washington D.C. area and Massachusetts. So two of the highest housing costs in the world. You just can't. The math doesn't add up. And we've seen, of course, what happens. Is what I meant by when I said corruption is so rampant. Presley's husband, who spent 10 years in prison for drug trafficking, he opened a consulting company up 3 days before she was sworn in. And we just saw that he got a $2 billion contract from Maura Healey, to construct the Springfield courthouse. And that's what happens. Ed Markey's wife has been working for NGOs for 30 years while he's been, the last 30 years in Congress, 53 years. But so it is this grift, and that's why we need to clean that up. And one way to do it is term limits. One way to do it is making sure that you can't become a lobbyist and invest, in companies that you're overseeing. Seth Moulton has 7 figures invested in companies that he oversees on the Senate, not the Senate, but the House committee that he's a part of. So he sits on a subcommittee overseeing these defense contractors while he has investments in those companies. He's getting information that you and I don't have access to. If we knew the United States government was going to award a $5 billion contract to this new company, we could buy that company's stock and it would skyrocket. Well, he does it and it skyrockets. That kind of grift, that kind of corruption has got to end. And one way to do it is to pass a law that ends it all. And that's why I say that's my first act. We have to clean it up.
Okay, now, one thing that I'm confused about, we're in this war with Iran right now, but we're told that the United States is energy independent. So if we're energy independent, why are our gas prices going up?
Well,
why is our heating oil going up?
No, that is a great question. We take less than 2% of oil from that region. The problem is that region, the Strait of Hormuz, controls up to 25% of global trade, oil trade. Countries like China get 80 to 90% of their oil. So it impacts, obviously oil prices. Here in Massachusetts, it's because of the one-party rule. I mean, if you told me that I only get to talk about one issue, the whole election, it would be electricity. Because every one of us opens up that bill and we see supply, $80, delivery, $280. And we have to ask ourselves, why in the world would the delivery of the energy be 3 times more than what I actually consume. It's because of these policies, EV credits, solar charges, offshore wind charges. When you add all that up, it not allowing natural gas, relying on electricity, overextending the grid, we can solve that. You know, I have a plan that expands natural gas and puts 4 small modular reactors in the Commonwealth, and it would save minimum $500 per household between now and 2050 on the low end. It could be as high as $800, $850 because we'd be cutting our electricity prices in half. We're losing businesses because our electricity prices are high. Massachusetts pays the highest rate in the continental United States. And to everyone out there, I want them to hear this. Ed Markey lives in Chevy Chase, Maryland. He pays 16 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. Here in Massachusetts, we pay 33 cents per kilowatt hour. We pay more than double what he's paying in Chevy Chase, Maryland, because Maryland hasn't adopted his Green New Deal nonsense that he's pushed, that Massachusetts has followed. And so that should outrage everyone.
It's amazing that they don't understand this. Or it's either they don't understand it or they're making money from it, one or the other. But what I'd like to talk about now is some foreign policy, because the Senate has a lot to do with foreign policy. And 47 years ago, Iran had this revolution, and they still to this day want to kill as many Americans as they can. They want to eliminate the state of Israel. The Obama had the Iran deal, which Seth Moulton said was a great idea, and we needed to pass it. I looked at the Iran deal and I said, well, gee, that looks to me like it guarantees that in 10 years Iran would have a nuclear bomb and be able to destroy Israel. So I thought that was a pretty lousy deal. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing in Iran now, why we're doing it, and see if we can convince people that this is the right thing to do because of who's in charge there, not because of the Iranian people.
Right. Well, listen, we got to go back, and the problem is everyone, and I think there's legitimate criticisms to make about the Trump administration on communicating, on their communication of why it's necessary and what happened from June 2025 to this day, right? And so I think that's fair, but we need to go back to this one thing that's consistent. President Bill Clinton said it. President Barack Obama said it. President George W. Bush said it. President Trump said it. Consistently, every American president, despite party, has agreed that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, that we know that if they achieve nuclear weapon operability, they're going to use it, period. And so therefore, since we all agree on that, I think it's been a communication failure of explaining to the American people, why they were so close and why we needed to go in. Because it's a no-brainer, right? I agree with that position. We cannot allow Iran to achieve nuclear capabilities. And so I think the war in Iran has been unpopular to the point that it is because I think of really a communication problem.
Well, I think Trump talks too much. If he kept his mouth a little bit quieter and didn't say some of the things, people pick up certain things that
Right.
they say.
Or even it's okay to say in June of 2025, President Trump said that we obliterated Iran's nuclear capability. If that wasn't true, if the intelligence came back and said, Mr. President, the intel was bad. They actually are much closer. We didn't wipe their nuclear. It's okay to do that. I mean, you know, they were wrong. Intelligence is wrong sometimes, right? They were wrong about massive weapons of mass destruction with Saddam Hussein. And so I think President Trump might think it's kind of a weakness sometimes to say, hey, you know, we quite didn't obliterate them. But I think it's okay to say, I think American people, if that's the case, and that's the assumption I make, because they said that we obliterated their nuclear, and then 7 months later we're bombing them. So if it was wrong, I think share that. That's what I meant by, I think there's valid criticism to criticize the communication. The goal is justified, right? But the communication needs to be better.
Well, what I don't understand too is, it seems to me party is far more important than the people. And I'll give you another example with our friend Seth Moulton. Seth Moulton says the Democrats aren't going to like this, but I don't want boys and girls sports. I want to protect my daughters.
Right.
And then he votes for boys and girls sports.
Right.
You know, why would we want somebody as a senator who won't go by his feelings, what he thinks is right, because his party says, no, you gotta do this?
Yeah.
So my question to you would be, would you vote for something that the Democrats wanted if you thought it was right? Because the Democrats can't always be wrong, the Republicans can't always be right, and vice versa. And I've said this on the show many times, the definition of politics is the art of compromise.
Right.
And we're not seeing compromise in anything anymore.
No, we're not. Listen, you are preaching to the choir. If you look at my bus, the Deaton bus, the logo or the theme says, the writing on the bus, people over politics. That's my whole theme. The reason why people should vote for me, the reason why disenfranchised Democrats should vote for me, independents should vote for me, Republicans should vote for me, is because I don't have loyalty to a person, a party, or an agenda. I have loyalty to the common sense and Constitution. And so, yes, partisan politics is killing us. I don't know when the word compromise became such a bad word. We live in a divided country. Here's the fact. 77 million Americans voted for President Trump. 75 million Americans voted for Kamala Harris. In a country of 330 million, 2 million isn't that big of a difference. You know, it's less than 1.8%. So we live in a divided world. You have to have some compromise. So yes, I don't care if it's good. If I'm the U.S. Senator, I will have one test. Is it good for America and Massachusetts? It is, I'm for it. I support it. I'll vote for it. It isn't, I won't. And it doesn't matter whether you call it progressive or conservative. You know, we've got to get past party politics. And Ed Markey and Seth Moulton will vote no on anything President Trump offers, even if it's good for America and Massachusetts. I'm not a guaranteed yes till I see it, but I'm a maybe, right? And it is good for Massachusetts, it is good for America. Of course I supported President Trump. If there is a, you know, God forbid, President AOC one day, and I'm a U.S. Senator, I'll still apply the same test, right? Is it good for America and Massachusetts? It is, I support it. It isn't, I don't. I know that sounds simple, but that really is how it should be. These two guys running for the Democrat primary, their entire message is they're arguing over who's going to fight Trump harder. Trump won't be president for 2/3 of the next senatorial term. The term is 6 years. When the next U.S. Senator from Massachusetts gets sworn in, Trump will only have 2 years from that date. So your entire message is you're going to fight against somebody who won't be there 2/3 of the time. Hopefully people out there are ready for someone whose message is, hey, I'm not going to fight against him or against this. I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for lower electricity prices. I'm fighting for affordability. I'm fighting for common sense. hopefully they're ready for that message and they'll get past the party politics.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, because that's, in campaigns, one of the things that really bothers me is you hear people saying, my opponent does this, my opponent does that. I don't care what your opponent does. I want to know what you're going to do.
Right.
Okay? And I want you to tell me why I should vote for you.
Right.
You can do comparisons,
Yeah.
but don't tell me the other guy is lousy, because if the other guy wins,
Yeah.
that means we got a lousy guy in there.
I share this all the time. You know, people ask me, what did I learn when I ran for Elizabeth Warren? And I learned some valuable lessons. Like I told you, experience is the greatest teacher. I had
Right.
none, right? One thing I learned is exactly what you just said. I learned that you have to give every voter a reason to vote for you. And it can't be just against the other guy. Like, I can't just run that Ed Markey's too old and been there too long. That's not a good enough reason. Like, so I'll give you an example. I thought that even if you didn't think I was a perfect Republican, like the best Republican candidate, against Elizabeth Warren, even if you have a tiny conservative bone in your body, you'll vote for me over her. No, there were people who blanked me, who were conservatives, because they didn't feel that I gave them a reason to vote for them. So this time out, I'm trying to make every single person, whether you're conservative or you're progressive or you're moderate, this is the reasons to vote for me, not just because the other guy's bad. And that's what's going to distinguish me from them. Their whole message is Trump bad, right? And I want to say Deaton good.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I mean, why I want to vote for you, not against the other person.
Right.
So.
No, that's a perfect sense. And there's lots of reasons to vote, for me in this race, because most people out there are not looking for ideology. They're looking for solutions to their problems. Their rent's too high, their electricity's too high, their health care premiums are too high. How do we make life more affordable for regular people? That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for slogans. They're not looking for ideology. Look, there's always a group of people, right? If there are some people in the Democrat Party who want to go into socialism now, they're not going to vote for me. All right, I get it, and that's okay. But the most people, I think, are looking for not the ideology, but the solutions. That's why I'm running on solutions, not problems.
One thing that bothers me about healthcare, since you brought that up, why is it that American companies who produce medications charge Americans more money than Europeans or Canadians? I mean, you can buy the same medication from Canada, made in the United States, for less money.
Yeah. One of the biggest, issues facing electricity is one. Obviously, healthcare would be one of the other biggest issues for me. The reason the Affordable Care Act was never going to be affordable is because it allowed 3 insurance companies that are vertically integrated. That means from manufacturer all the way down to retail at the pharmacy. They control 95% of all America's health care. I'm not exaggerating. There's 3 companies control 95% of our health care, and there's no transparency. If your or my microwave goes out tonight, we can go online, we can look for brands and prices all across the country, compare and shop. Try doing that for blood thinner. Try doing that for diabetes drugs. Doesn't exist, not allowed. There's no transparency. Did you know that a traditional birth in a hospital, including with epidural, the drug to make it in the spine, $6,000 cash. Through insurance, $30,000 to $50,000. Because 3 companies control it all. We need a Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite Republicans, type of revolution. He came in and he saved capitalism. He broke up the trust. He busted trust, took on the oil barons and the railroad tycoons. Small businesses thrived, competition increased, prices came down. We've got to take that same approach to healthcare and require complete transparency, expand telehealth. There are solutions to these problems, and when you think about it, honestly, we have a form of socialism already in the country, corporate socialism. The subsidies that we're giving these 3 insurance companies, it's billions and billions and billions. They shut the government down over the subsidies. And so we need to change all that. It's not Medicare for all and a government, is in charge of everything approach, but real, true competition and capitalism will solve it.
Okay, getting back a little bit to foreign policy,
Yep.
one of the things that some people are just crazy about is that Trump wants to take over Greenland. Okay, and I look at that and I say, I'm not a politician, but sometimes you can think, I don't think he wants to take over Greenland. I think it's a negotiation technique because he wanted more military bases in Greenland, and there was the compromise.
Right.
He was looking for the compromise.
Right.
Am I out to lunch, or are they out to lunch?
No, well, the one thing the media doesn't do is they don't, because it involves Trump, they just say, oh, Trump wants Greenland, he's crazy. Well, Harry Truman offered $100 million worth of gold for Greenland in the 50s, 1951, somewhere in there, which would be worth about $1.5 billion today. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, before then, Andrew Jackson wanted it. After we purchased Alaska, they wanted to purchase Greenland. So presidents throughout history have recognized the strategic importance of Greenland. And so does President Trump. And yeah, I think part of that is asking, pounding the table, wanting all of this so that you can, when you get half of what you really wanted, which is what you really wanted to begin with, you win. But unfortunately, the media will just say, oh, Trump's crazy, and not really look at what is the strategic importance of this piece of land. And it is quite strategically important, not just the rare earth minerals, but where it places from a military standpoint.
What do you think of the, taking the Supreme Court, adding more members, just because you want your way? In other words, it seems to me, and you're a lawyer,
Yep.
the law is black and white. You might interpret it a little different,
Right.
but the law is black and white, and the Supreme Court, allegedly follows the law.
Right.
So how can you stack a court? And is that really kosher to do something like that?
No, it's not. And then what's the solution? So let's say that Democrats take control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and they decide to end the filibuster and go to 51 votes. And they decide that they're going to add 13 justices, not add 13, but add additional, to make it 13, so in 4 more. And then what happens? The Republicans come in, we don't like they put 2 liberal justices in, and now we're going to go to 15, or we're going to take it back to 9. All you're going to do is keep going back and forth, and the pendulum's going to swing from one extreme to the other extreme. Typical hypocrisy. You can disagree with the Supreme Court decision, all right, but make a law. Then your Congress, the Supreme Court interprets the law. You can make laws and then see if the Supreme Court, but Congress hasn't passed anything. I mean, they don't pass any laws anymore. They don't even talk about a budget anymore. That's why I said if you don't pass a budget, you don't get paid. I can take it further. I think that everyone's salary should be based on the median of the state that they represent. Ed Markey's salary should be based on what's the median salary in Massachusetts. amongst. And you want to get paid more, figure out a way to implement policies that increases everybody's wages more. You shut down the government, you don't get paid. You certainly don't, you create the long lines at TSA, you don't get escorted to the front of the line, but that's what they do. They've been doing it. And so to your point, though, no, it's politics at play. They don't like the Supreme Court ruling, so they want to change the Supreme Court. And the problem is they never look and see that even if they gain control, Republicans will gain control again, too. So are we just going to keep going back and forth? That's not leadership.
No, there's very little leadership. See, that's one of the things I think they don't like President Trump on, is because he is a leader. You don't have to like what he does,
Right.
but he shows leadership. And to me, that's something people just aren't used to in this country.
Well, I mean, listen, one of the reasons George W. Bush won over Al Gore is because people, you know, he was like, you'll know where I stand. People want that leader. You may not agree with me, but you always know where I stand. You know what I mean? And the people like Seth Moulton, he's running and he'll change his mind, right? I want my daughters to be protected. Oh, wait a minute. Some of the people in my party are complaining. I changed my mind. I'll vote for it. I'm running for president. I'm a moderate. I'm running in the Democratic primary. I'm a progressive. And they want a leader.
That word progressive really bothers me. I don't think it's progressive. I think it's regressive, because they're trying to bring the country backwards. But in any case, again, we're running out of time. What I'd like you to do is spend the next minute just telling people why they should vote for you.
Well, one thing I want to not forget is that if you like anything of what I'm talking about, go to johndeatonforsenate.com. If you want a yard sign, we'll get you a yard sign. If you can donate, donate. But if you want common sense and someone who's going to put people ahead of politics, then you want someone like me. Like I said earlier, I'm not running because Ed Markey's old and been there for 53 years. I'm running because I understand the struggle that everyday people have faced. I know what it's like to work 50 hours a week and still feel like you're not getting ahead. And I think we need somebody who has that kind of life experience to go to Washington. I keep telling everyone, I'm one of you, all right? I've overcome poverty, I've overcome debt, I've overcome cancer, I'm raising daughters in this public school system. All the issues that you're facing, I face, and I think it's time we send one of them. The problem in this country are career politicians, and if we get back to voting for who the best candidate is, I'm gonna win. And I hope that they don't just go by party politics and just vote for who's the best candidate.
Well, let us hope. Thank you for watching. I hope this was educational for you, and you see both parts. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.